Live from the 607 is the ODPH Entertainment Edition, where we're talking movies, comics, TV, and more. Why don't you join in the conversation? Hashtag ODPH, because here we go. And welcome to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour Entertainment Edition. I am your host, Ken. I'm sitting across from me this week is the intern himself, Padawan J.
You know, I tried to put in an application to get into X-Force, but sadly they turned me down.
That is shocking because you know what? I heard if you got a good hookup on LinkedIn, you got in.
That must be it. I'm not on LinkedIn.
We are not, folks. We are on every other social media for the most part, so check us out, hashtag ODPH. But the big news of the week had to be the monster that was Deadpool 2 at the box office.
The Merc with the mouth came, saw, conquered, and ate some chimichangas.
Now, you know the deal, folks. We talk spoilers on the show, so you have been forewarned. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, record, listen later. So, that being said, what was your thoughts on the movie?
I liked it. It was as good, if not better, than the first one. I have to see it again before I make a final judgment call with that, as I do with most things. But I enjoyed it, start to finish.
You know, it went a lot different than I thought it was going to be. Because as you listened on last week's show, which is available on iTunes, iHeart, Libsyn, and YouTube, I thought they were going to follow the Messiah complex. And I was fully banked that that was going to be the storyline.
Sure.
I was happily surprised. And they went in a lot of different directions than what I thought they were going to do. They opened, obviously, with catching up with right where the first movie left off. And Deadpool now kind of having a sense of, I don't want to say belonging, but things are quote-unquote normal.
He's a little more grounded than he was.
Yeah, he's more grounded. Him and Vanessa are obviously taking steps in the right direction.
Yeah.
Albeit, though, it's always that famous one last job that comes back to haunt.
One last job that gets repeated like 5 times.
Yeah. And in this case, Vanessa gets killed in the process.
Yep.
Now, I know there's been a lot of online backlash, actually, about this.
There was before the movie came out, too.
Yeah, that she was killed off too quickly, and I agree, too.
I agree, too.
But I understand for the story arc they're going with, but I thought she got killed off way too quickly, and obviously this sends Deadpool on a very different direction. He then gets tied up with the X-Men, who are trying to contain a threat that is from the Essex Orphanage, that if you know who Essex is in the Marvel Universe, you know that's Mr. Sinister. They've been teasing this throughout the Wolverine movies and now Deadpool. Sadly, we did not see him.
Right.
But we did see some other classic X-Men villains, one being Black Tom Cassidy, which unfortunately you kind of came and saw and forgot because he was gone very quickly from the film.
Yeah.
But the biggest surprise to me was the Juggernaut made his triumphant return to the big screen rather, and the direction they went with Cable coming to the past to eliminate the threat, quote unquote, and then the whole saga of X-Force, which was done brilliantly.
Yeah,
which they took nice elements, I think, from each major story run. Shatterstar being from the original team with Domino, Domino was phenomenal in the movie too.
Oh yeah,
she definitely stole that movie.
It's like Deadpool the entire time is going, luck isn't a power, you can't be lucky, and like he's essentially doing a supervillain monologue and going on and on and on and on and on while not getting the job done while she's getting the job done.
Yeah, and I thought that just played up to her character, and I for one actually want to see a Domino spin-off movie after this.
I wouldn't mind seeing it. Yeah, I think the funniest part for her, in my opinion, was after she gets the job done, she interrupts Deadpool while he's monologuing and goes, "Hey, I'm in," and he just goes, "You what?"
Yeah, and I thought that was kind of interesting how he played it off. But with Domino being there with Shatterstar, that's from the original team. Bedlam, I can't remember what team he was on actually, because it's more of the recent incarnation of X-Force or X-Men,
sure,
if I'm not mistaken. But this is kind of in a time period where I want to say like Marvel's focus was kind of shifting more towards the Avengers. So the X-Men period there, I'm not exactly sure what team he was on, but that's just for me in my reading. They did do, I believe his name is Zeitgeist, the one that he had the toxic spit. He was from the Ecstatics version of X-Force, which is kind of got a very unique place in the X history books. And there was also the one and only Peter.
Who may not be done with this movie franchise from what I've been reading.
Yes, that he might be coming back. And the Vanisher, which was played by Brad Pitt of all people.
So confession, I may or may not have known this one.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I said it on the show. I know I told you off air. Because with this movie, most movies I try to avoid spoilers, but this was one that, there was so much going on behind the scenes and everything that like the curiosity got the better of me and I just started reading stuff. And this is one I read maybe about a week or so before that, it was good. After the premiere came out, there was a guy I follow who was alluding to there being a big cameo that may or may not be in the movie. It could be a blink and you miss it. But once the premiere happened, he's like, okay, yeah, it's in the film, and he wrote about it. And I was like, oh my god, that's going to be amazing.
Yeah, no, it was well timed and well placed. There was a lot of cameos throughout the movie. If you blink and you miss it, you actually miss members of the First Class universe.
Yo, that was so good.
Which is just very uniquely placed.
I was like, and correct me if I'm wrong, he made a joke not 30 seconds before you see them that it's the same studio. They couldn't roll out a couple more bucks to get a few more X-Men.
Yeah, and it was just well timed, and you saw Professor X, Beast.
Yep, Cyclops was in there.
Cyclops was in there as well. So you did see a lot of the elements of the current X universe as it stands in the Marvel timeline. And then obviously Colossus came back with Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
Yep.
And her girlfriend on the show.
Yuko or Yuki, something like that.
Yes. So they're all tied in, and the storyline definitely went a lot of different places, but almost in typical Deadpool fashion, everything got retconned at the end.
Yeah, no. Getting back to your point with the Vanessa thing, that to me, again, because I was reading stuff left, right, and center, I have read about that one. That one had been in there from test. People had issues with that one since the test screenings.
Yeah.
That one had been in there, and I read about that one, and I didn't mention it because that's fairly large spoiler for the movie. I was kind of questioning, okay, why? I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to happen or why. And so I was kind of going into it going, okay, how are they going to do this? What are going to be the ramifications? Because I can't see this being a typical superhero movie where the damsel in distress, the love interest of your main character dies, and goes all Christopher Reeve in Superman screaming and reverses time.
Yeah, that was probably the one aspect of the movie I didn't like. Because if you know who the character is in the comic, being Copycat, she does have a history with Domino and X-Force, so it only makes sense to add her to the team. Albeit, though, the version that we saw in this movie is going to be a lot different than I think what we're going to see when the X-Force movie actually does happen. If it still happens, obviously, there's a lot more stuff going on behind the scenes with deals and such.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the biggest issue because I was like, why are you killing her off that quickly?
Well,
my
biggest issue with it was, and I wouldn't have had as much issue with it if it ended up being a motivating factor for why Deadpool did what he did. But he took care of he killed all the people who broke into his apartment, with the exception of the one guy who made a run for it, after he killed Vanessa. But then after the guy runs out and Deadpool catches him, he throws himself into the front of a moving garbage truck and the guy's dead. So now she's dead. The guy, the people responsible for her death are now dead. It's not exactly a motivating factor.
No, I think, that's where the writing, I think, missed on it. In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
That I thought that it should have not happened. I mean, there's ways you can kind of dance around that and still get the point of you want to try giving Deadpool a reason to defend this kid.
Yeah.
That, turned out not to be the complex villain that Cable thought. Which, by the way, Josh Brolin did a fantastic job as Cable. Fantastic. And how he was written, Cable is one of those characters that is either written very well or you kind of lose track of what he is.
I'll say, I got to admit, I did not go into this movie expecting to hear Cable talking about dubstep.
No, because if you know Cable's history, the way he was done way back in New Mutants 87, and with Rob Liefeld working on the book, he is a futuristic soldier.
Yeah.
And there's no kidding, there's no joking, there's nothing going on other than...
There might have been at one point, but that got taken away very quickly.
Yeah. So how he was in the movie was pretty much how he should be in the comics.
Yeah.
Sometimes it kind of gets a little hazy, I guess.
Sure.
But anytime you deal with time travel and different takes on the character, you're going to have that happen.
Time travel's messy.
Yeah, it is. But and it got a little more messier with how they ended Deadpool, because now that has now played a factor. Certain elements that were in the movie are now not in the movie.
Yeah.
Certain past movies don't exist.
And this is all canon. I know I read an article. I can't remember if it was the director or the writer of the movie. Somebody asked him if the post-credit scenes that take place, where things are retconned, are canon, and they go, no, yeah, that's canon. So I'm thinking, all right, so if what happens with Ryan Reynolds is canon, how is Deadpool there? I'm not going to think about it.
No, I mean, Deadpool is meant to break the fourth wall, and he is probably the most comedic superhero, if you can call him that, that's currently going by Marvel or
an adult comedic hero.
Yeah, or by mainstream standards, I guess.
Yeah, and the thing we can say with this movie is it's come out in this week that there will be a director's cut of the movie.
Yeah, which I can only imagine how much over the top it's going to be.
It's from what I've read, it's going to add about another 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, which, I mean, we'll see how it plays out in the film. I mean, but overall, though, I did enjoy the film.
Yeah.
I recommend it. I mean, Pad, you got the box office numbers for it.
Yeah, no, box office numbers for the weekend domestically, $125.5 million.
Not a bad opening, especially for an R-rated superhero.
R-rated superhero movie with Avengers Infinity War still in theaters and still pulling in people.
You got to give your hat offs to the Deadpool crew, because, I mean, they pulled it off. I mean, Deadpool, like we said, it is pretty much a animated cartoon come to life in the superhero world.
I'll say it's like a late night cartoon come to life.
Yeah, and it is what it is. They do break the fourth wall. My only problem I had is obviously killing Vanessa off super early. I did not like that. I just think that that's just a bad look. And I was hoping that they gave her character more to do in the film.
Right. No, yeah. That was my one issue with it, too. I will say the one thing that I did not see coming that might have been one of my favorite things about the entire movie, and this is just my taste, the James Bond-style entrance or beginning.
Yeah, that was very cool.
That was amazing. I know when the Celine Dion thing came out, this is funny. It's funny marketing. It's what Ryan Reynolds has been doing. I mean, he showed up in South Korea, an Asian game show, and was in a unicorn mask singing on like a karaoke game singing show or something.
Yeah, that's been going viral that he was.
Yeah, so I figured okay, Celine Dion's on the soundtrack. This is just something he's doing for marketing. No, that was the actual theme song for the movie, like a James Bond movie, and they gave it the full James Bond style, opening credits, and I was rolling with laughter.
Yeah, no, he's done a phenomenal job promoting the movie and really selling it, because if you really break it down, I mean, Deadpool is mostly, I would say, a recenter superhero.
Yeah.
If that's even a word, recenter. But it is now. We category stuff different here on the ODPH. But he's more of, within the past 30 years, been, I would say, arguably the biggest breakout superhero.
Yeah.
That's come down the Main Street pike.
Yeah, I would say so, because if you look at documentaries or TV specials or whatnot, when they're covering the history of comics, they talk about Batman, they talk about Superman and Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four, Captain America. Not often is Deadpool referenced.
No, but he's now grown in the popularity that he's mentioned in the top names of Marvel superheroes.
Say it's in the same breath or the same sentence.
Which is it's mind-blowing, because he was originally made as a copy of Deathstroke.
Yeah.
This still blows my mind.
Which they made reference to in the Teen Titans Go trailer that we saw before the movie.
Yes, which I was laughing hysterically.
I want to say at least half or 3/4 of that trailer was just whoever is voicing Deathstroke in that movie going, no, Deadpool's a copy of me.
Yeah. And you know what? It's a true story. But overall, Deadpool did its thing.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see what they're going to do for a third. I know early word was they were not planning on doing a third one, but that's kind of
future plans kind of hinge on what happens with the whole Disney Fox thing.
Yeah. If they do a third one, I really kind of want to see them do something like the Messiah Complex or Messiah War, where they can involve Wolverine, Cable, and Deadpool. I know it's a long shot, but the fanboy in me wants to see something like that happen.
Yeah, this one, whatever they do in the future is very interesting, because unlike the first one where they announced, hey, we're casting Cable, we're doing Cable in the next one, this one they didn't really do that. It's kind of leaving it wide open to whatever they choose to do.
Yeah, because now with the X-Force movie allegedly still happening, That's going to be a lot different than Deadpool.
Yeah.
It's still going to be as violent because X-Force is probably the most extreme, no pun intended, mutant team in Marvel's history.
Right.
So if they really play it up to the comic, there's a lot of different ways they can go with it. I mean, but what I would like to see is maybe a more original team lineup come in for that. I would like to see Copycat get more screen time and obviously do a better job because, I mean, like I said, that's the one thing that I take away from the film that I did not like.
Right.
And I would like to see, I don't know if they necessarily need to follow a certain storyline. I mean, I think Executioner's Song would be an interesting one if they could pull it off, but obviously there's a lot of moving parts in that one.
Right.
But like I said, I think they could definitely pull off the Messiah Complex / War, and definitely you can get your big heavy hitters of Wolverine, Cable, and you could throw Deadpool in there, and you can make that happen. That's not the hardest thing to do. But let us know what you think. Hashtag ODPHEE, and interact with us on social media. What was your thoughts on Deadpool 2? We're going to take a quick break. Be right back.
It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward, no steps back.
Hey, this is Vince the Common Man Ciatoy, local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast.
We knew right where we'd be, floating on the airwaves, you see. It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward and no steps back. We knew right where we'd be.
Coming back for the second segment on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition, and Marvel just had a big week overall.
Yeah, they did.
Deadpool did its thing at the box office, but on the small screen, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. closed out this season with one of the best episodes in recent years.
I'll say if you just watch the season finale and don't watch anything further from that, you'll be all right.
Yeah, this was originally supposed to be rumored the series finale, but we don't have that.
Nope.
We have the season one, but I think in some cases certain characters are not going to be returning.
No.
There's a short season already made for 2019 that's going to be getting in production very soon.
I'll say there are some characters that could come back, but if they did so, it'd cause some certain issues.
Well, we're going to have to see, but breaking down this episode...
Again, spoilers warned.
Yes, spoilers. As you know, when you listen to the show, we do talk spoilers unless we tell you we're not. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. closed out the story of Phil Coulson the only way it could have.
Yep.
Gosh
darn Tahiti.
They sent him to Tahiti to enjoy his final days after succumbing to the Ghost Rider.
Yeah, yep.
Curse.
I knew where he was going to be with that before they even said it, because there was that establishing shot that was slowly panning onto a beach, and I just said to myself, he's on gosh darn Tahiti, isn't he?
It made sense. I mean, to take it back to Tenfold, because that's where he went, allegedly, when he was killed off in the Avengers.
Well, it is a magical place.
It is. They do a lot of magical things. But as the team has been struggling this year, they were taken into this future from the opening or the ending of last year.
Yep.
They're now in space. The world has been destroyed at this point. They're dealing with the Kree.
We'll say the Earth has been destroyed, and what remains of the human race has essentially been enslaved.
Yes, and it's all been rumored that Daisy Johnson has done this to the world, that she is now known as the Destroyer of Worlds. They find their way back, albeit with Leo Fitz finding a way to get to the future because he was not with the group at the original time. And then when they come back, it's kind of, okay, we saw what's going to happen. How do we prevent it?
Which in a lot of times with movies and TV shows is, especially I think of Star Wars, usually you try to prevent the future. You're going to make it happen anyway.
Yeah, and that's one thing that they were very careful about trying to stop. And then as we go on through the season, they bring back a lot of elements from season 1 and 2 that when Graviton is introduced, and albeit it's different than the comics, it's General Glenn Talbot from Incredible Hulk fame, who is driven crazy with his powers, and a little Hydra brainwashing too.
A little bit.
That now it's determined that he is actually the true threat.
So he gets a god complex and thinks, I'm the only person who can save the world from this threat.
Yes. So then the team is making their final stand during this episode. Coulson is trying to entrust Daisy Johnson to run the team, but Daisy is having her own issues with letting Coulson die, that she's sidetracked from the mission. ultimately, the control of S.H.I.E.L.D. is turned over to Mac, which is great.
I didn't see that coming at all.
I've been screaming that for 2 seasons because Mac is just the guy that he's calm enough that he gets the sense of what S.H.I.E.L.D. should be doing is helping people. It's not so much dealing with the threats.
He's calm enough, but when the need comes, he will open up a can on you.
Oh, yeah. Shotgun X, best thing they've introduced on that show.
I'd say so.
So, obviously, with Mac leading the team, he's leading the rescue mission, and he's instructing Daisy, you're the only one that can take out Graviton. You got to do what you got to do. During this time, Coulson slips in the antidote to save his life to Daisy, knowing that something is going to happen, obviously going to the future. So, thus, when the battle happens, Daisy is given the extra power to shoot Graviton into space, where we presume he is dead.
That was amazing.
Yes, that was one of the better visuals that happened on that show, and they do have a great special effects.
I'd say that whole sequence, from her running from the Quinjet down the street with people looking on, it was like something out of a movie.
Yeah, no, they definitely had the movie cinematic feel to it.
Yeah.
And that's what I felt when I was watching. Not so much like when I was watching Inhumans, which had all the fancy camera angles and such. No, this really felt almost like a movie.
I almost wonder, and I don't know, if they maybe brought in one of their MCU movie photographers for filming.
Quite possible. I mean, that would explain a lot with it because, like I said, it was visually impressive. The story ran every emotion you can go through.
Let's say, especially with Fitz.
Yes, with Fitz getting apparently killed during the building.
Killed asterisk.
Yes, which honestly, that has such a Doctor Who twist to it.
A little bit, yeah. I know I had to explain it to a couple people when it happened, but yeah, essentially he got killed off. I thought he just lost a limb when it happened.
No,
because it was hard to tell from the TV I was watching on. It looked like the piece of building or whatever fell down on his leg and he just lost a limb or something. I was like, oh, that sucks. That's why he can't feel his leg. And then I'm like, oh no, he's gonna die.
Yeah.
And he dies off, and like I know I was freaking out. I was like, no, he's season 1, episode 1, staple of the show. And then they get to the end.
It was very bittersweet because if you watch the show and you've grown with it, Fitz has had arguably the most character development.
He's got more crap thrown at him than I think anyone else in that show.
But that's what made him great on the show because he finally got away from the cookie cutter, happy-go-lucky typical scientist.
Yeah.
And to be the villain of season 4 was brilliant.
Oh, God, yeah.
And certain aspects he brought with him to season 5 because of, how they developed his character throughout the years. And they even tied back to when Ward tried killing him and Simmons off in season 1.
Yep.
And to see what happened, the ramifications are still tied in. I thought it was brilliant. But I kind of figured that they were killing him off because when Fitz was saying, oh, it's my leg, and Mac didn't even try moving him, Mac knew he was gone.
Okay.
That's why I knew. I'm like, oh, he's dead. I said, Mac's not even trying to move him. I said, he's like, oh, hold on. And he's like,
I didn't even put that together.
Yeah, that's the only thing I could think of when it happened. So I was like, but obviously with how they've done the season and the future version of Fitz is now gone, but the one that is currently in the timeline is somewhere frozen.
He's in space frozen trying to make his way to the future, but therein lies the problem. Okay, well, if future Fitz, their Fitz is dead, but you have, that timeline's Fitz still in the space frozen trying to make his way to the future. Okay, you can go up and you can pull him out, but then there lies in the issue that you screw with the timeline where they're in the future.
Maybe though, because I think now that the world hasn't blown up.
Oh, you know what?
That's all. Like
that's true.
It's the one thing that now it's kind of an open slate of what happened.
That's
because
true.
The world was supposed to have been destroyed at this point.
That's true. So if the world's not destroyed, nobody has to go back into the past to bring the agents from the past to the future.
No, the only one who's wiped out is Deke.
Right. No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying like if the world isn't destroyed, then in the future they don't have to come back to the past to bring them forward. So Fitz no longer needs to be in space.
Right, so they just have to go get him. And I'm hoping they introduce S.W.O.R.D. at this time, which is the space version of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
Which, that would be a great segue.
Given the events of Infinity War, that would make a lot of sense.
It would be, since S.H.I.E.L.D., Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not due back until after Avengers 4 next year.
Yep.
So, obviously, there's going to be a time gap of what's going on. It's going to be very interesting to see how they're coming back, because, I think they were going into this thinking this was the series finale. Now, the 13 episodes is going to be a nice swan song to the fans, and it's also going to build into another show. Now, I know we speculated last week of what we thought. Has there been any changes, you think, to what you think is going to be coming down the pike, or no?
Haven't heard anything. The only thing I've really heard is a lot of people were asking why there wasn't more of a tie into Infinity War. Why there wasn't really any. There was a couple of references, but there was nothing on the level of, say, Winter Soldier. There's a simple answer for that. They changed the release date.
Yeah.
They changed the release date for the movie, and that threw off the plans they were going to do for the show because, as the one producer said, they work at a different pace than the movies do.
They do, but they did have a tie-in because Thanos was mentioned in the show. And honestly, I think that's what they needed because, I mean, like I said, one thing I would have loved to seen in Infinity War was just maybe characters from the Netflix shows and agents disappear. Mm-hmm. Just make it like a global event. I don't know if that was going to work or not, but they didn't go the route, and that's okay.
I don't know. Based off of when they're just looking in a calendar in my head, when they were filming Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I believe they would have been in the middle of filming the next season of Daredevil, if not also working on Luke Cage.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of different elements to tie in there, so it kind of gets a little murky. But overall, S.H.I.E.L.D. did exactly what it needed to do.
Yeah.
It ended. I mean, every single emotion you could think of happened in that show.
So it was a roller coaster.
Oh, by far. I mean, Clark Gregg, if this is it, thank you for the great performances over the year. You are our director.
I don't think it is. I think he comes back in some ways. Now, I don't think he'll be back physically. I think if he comes back next season, it will be in the form of like holographic or video messages or something. Like he left it like a treasure trove of like, hey, in case X happens, here's what you can do.
And that would make sense because now, I mean, obviously, depending on who's on the team as they come back.
Yeah, because I know there was a couple of interviews that got released the day the episode aired, and they got posted right after the episode aired, and I know one of them, I think it was Entertainment Weekly, asked him, your character goes off to Tahiti to live out the rest of his days. Are you done with the show? He said, in effect, that he wasn't quite sure that he had a meeting with the producers in a couple of days or weeks to sort that out.
Well, either way, I think he's done a masterful job. I mean, transition from the big screen to the small screen. I mean, obviously, we've said season 1 was a little rough.
Yeah.
And there's no way to sugarcoat it. But the show has gotten so much better over the years. And I think that it showed great faith in ABC and Disney and Marvel to let the show grow. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously, to where it is now, season 4 and season 5 have been fantastic.
Oh, top shelf.
Absolutely fantastic. So to see where they're going to sign it off and, transition into whatever the next project's going to be, I still think it's going to be Miss Marvel. That is my early prediction.
Maybe. I'll go because I know I think the reason they're going to keep him on the show is simply because he's already one of the most popular non-superhero characters in that universe. The interest is going to only go up, if not rebound, when he shows up in the Captain Marvel movie.
That is true because he is going to be appearing in the Captain Marvel movie, which is slated to come out in March of 2019. And tying that in, I mean, that would be a great segue for S.H.I.E.L.D. for when they return. Yeah. If they can somehow coincide that and make something happen, especially if the next project is going to be Miss Marvel, or if they're going to go into a different direction of S.H.I.E.L.D. Uh-huh. I mean, it's hard to say what they're really thinking. That's one great thing about Marvel is they're very well planned out for what's going to happen next.
Oh, yeah. That's the one thing with Marvel, and not just their TV shows, but their movies and everything they do. They've got stuff planned out for like 10 years.
They say it's all connected for a reason,
and
they back it up. So it'll be interesting to see moving forward. Now, that wasn't the only big news of Marvel this week.
Yep.
The Spider-Man universe got a new addition to it. Mm-hmm. You want to break it to him, Pat?
Yeah, a bit of interesting news came down the newswire on Monday that Spider-Man 2, whatever they end up calling it, has found its villain in one Jake Gyllenhaal playing Mysterio.
That is so surprising to me on a bunch of different levels. I think the casting is great, and I think the character is great too. But I was really surprised because I remember at one point I kept hearing Jake Gyllenhaal was up for the role of Peter Parker.
I remember that too, yeah. I don't remember which franchise it was. But
I want to say it was the Andrew Garfield one.
I do remember that, though.
I want to say it, but don't quote me on that. But his name has been tagged with Spider-Man for many, many years.
Yeah.
To see now that he's coming as a villain, I think is great. And Mysterio, there's a lot of visual stuff you can do.
Oh, yeah.
So where they go with it is going to be interesting. But I heard that Along with Mysterio, Michael Keaton is coming back as Vulture.
Uh-huh.
They still have the characters of Scorpion and Shocker
Yep.
on the team as well.
Yep.
So if I'm doing my math right, that is 4.
Yeah.
There's a very notorious group that gave Spider-Man problems throughout the years called the Sinister Six. Will we see 2 more characters get added to that mix?
I think we will, one being Goblin. But I don't think they would go the route of the armor and glider route because that would be associated with the last 2 attempts a little too much. I think if they go a Goblin route, I think it would be in the Ultimate form.
Okay.
If you think of the Ultimate Spider-Man universe where it was like more Hulk-like, I almost want to say. You know, Google it, image it, like Ultimate Spider-Man Hobgoblin, Ultimate Spider-Man Green Goblin. You'll see what I mean. I think if they go that route with it down the road and they go the glider route, it'll get too much connection and bad memories of previous incarnations. I think if they go that route, they'll go Ultimate Spider-Man with it.
It'd be interesting to see. I think if that's going to be the route for this trilogy of Spider-Man films, I think that's a great idea.
Because you've already got a Flyer and Vulture. You'll have Mysterio doing whatever he does, plus everybody else. If you bring in the Goblin, who's just a wrecking ball.
Well, that's going to be the thing, because you can only tell so many Green Goblin stories.
Right.
I think, well, for Spider-Man, they did such a great job in the original Spider-Man that it's hard to say. And then you want to go with the Harry Osborn version, which I don't really have any good things to say about it.
I think if they almost go about it the same way that they did with Spider-Man in this universe, where you don't have to do the origin story. You saw the movie, however many years ago. He's already in the universe.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they need to do at this point, because if you're going to do the trilogy and you're going to do Sinister Six, you really got to go heavy with it.
Which we know they want to do Sinister Six. Lord Almighty, they've been trying to do it for 10 years.
Well, I mean, I've heard rumors that they were going to try doing that as a solo film.
They were going to try doing it as a solo film. They wanted to build up to it in the Tobey Maguire movies. They wanted to build up to it in the Andrew Garfield movies. They want to build up to it now. They've been wanting to do it for 11 years.
Let me just throw this out there and see what our listening audience thinks. What if the other members of the Sinister Six are Carnage and the Green Goblin? And would they try tying Venom into the Spider-Man universe?
I don't know, because it seems like they're going out of their way in every humanly way possible to not reference Spider-Man in that Venom movie.
But do you think they're doing it as a curveball?
Maybe.
I'm going to throw that fan theory out, and that is just maybe my wild guessing, because ultimately what I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be Green Goblin and Kraven.
I've heard people saying they want to see Kraven.
I want to see Kraven.
I wouldn't mind seeing that either.
I would love to see that, but I don't know if that would happen. I could actually see that happening in the second Venom film.
Okay.
Rather than this interpretation of the Sinister Six. But there's so many possibilities now open. It's going to be really fun to watch. So whether you're really going all in on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and what that's going to happen next, I mean, the only thing you can say about that in closing is this season was good.
Yep.
It wasn't as great as last season. Season 4 is still the best one.
It was close.
It's
but...
close. It's close. They drug out the future stuff way too long.
Yeah.
But if you really just want to see them tie up every loose end they can, watch the episode. Let us know what you think. Hashtag ODPHEE. We want to know what's your thoughts on the new Spider-Man casting as well. We want to talk to you. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Mike Pappy from Rye Bread, and you're listening to the ODPH.
Now, we've talked the last couple segments about Marvel, but DC had a strong week as well, too.
They weren't caught sleeping.
No, speaking of season finales, the DC CW universe ended 2 shows on a very strong note.
Oh, yeah, they did.
Now, Arrow was the first one to come out.
Yep.
And Arrow rebounded beautifully.
Strongest season finale they've ever had, I would argue.
You could argue it, because I would say last season's with The Island.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
Would be.
Yeah.
Except for what happened after.
Yeah.
That's what ruins it. Like, there's a big asterisk in my book by it. But Arrow this season was dealing with the ramifications of Adrian Chase and blowing up Leon Yu.
Yep.
And obviously, that was a major letdown from the cliffhanger that only one character that nobody cared about was gone.
We'll say, what was it? There was the entire island and it was a large island, was laced with explosives, and it looked like they had no way to get off of there. And the final shot of the season is Oliver standing on the boat with his son watching the island explode. And I remember texting you, oh, bleep.
Yeah.
Thinking I know we were guessing how many people died, who made it, who didn't. We were guessing, and one.
It was one, and it was a character that nobody connected to because she really wasn't on the show that much that you really had the impact factor with. So it was kind of like, all right, all that for nothing, pretty much. So this season started out, and you had a computer hacker that was introduced a little bit in the previous season, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah.
That was supposed to be the main villain. But obviously, if you looked at the team that was on there and their quote-unquote Legion of Doom squad, you knew if you read the comics that the Ricardo Diaz character was supposed to be Richard Dragon. And I think I was saying, I can't remember if I was saying on the show or not, that he was the one that was supposed to stand out. And I thought it was kind of weird that they were dealing with pretty much, like I said, the Legion of Doom of the Arrowverse.
Yeah.
And when you have, 6 villains, you have a multiple team of heroes. Screen time is something that is a rarity.
Let's say, especially on a TV show.
Yeah, so it's tough to really get into everybody's story that you really care about. I mean, this is probably the biggest problem they have on The Walking Dead right now, not to, mix our shows up here.
Oh, yeah.
But when you have that many characters and you only have 60 minutes to tell your story.
45, really.
Yeah, you give take, whatever you want to define. But the overall point is you have that limited window and you're trying to tell all these stories to make your viewers really care. Arrow, I think, struggled with this season because they had so many villains that you couldn't really buy into, and then when you finally figured out, okay, what's going on, some of them were already eliminated from the show.
Right.
Plus, they deal with the time travel thing with Black Siren, and that just gets messy that you now have 2 canaries on the show. One's good, one's bad.
Yep.
X, Y, and Z, and then, I guess the story of Black Siren, is she trying to redeem herself? Is she just playing the team out? It just got kind of really confusing. But once they started eliminating the members of the Legion of Doom, albeit though you finally find out who's the mastermind behind everything is Ricardo Diaz, who was brilliant this season when they finally let him go and let him act. Kurt Atsuavado, I hope I pronounced that right. He's been on Oz. He's been on a bunch of different shows. He is a phenomenal actor. And when he finally got his chance to just unload on the character and make it his own, I will say that's now the top 2 second villain on the show. And considering last year with Adrian Chase, he cemented his place as number 2, and he really only got 6 episodes to really stand out.
Something like that, yeah.
Give take. But Ricardo Diaz finally got the chance to be who he was, which is a ruthless, antagonist that has a vision of just taking over.
I'm saying a guy who's like 9 steps ahead of you.
That you're gonna find out that he's gonna get trained. I'm going to say he's going to have some League of Assassin ties, or maybe they're going to finally introduce Lady Shiva to the show to explain his fighting style, which I think goes along with his comic origin, if I'm not mistaken. Please correct me if I'm wrong, hashtag ODPHEE. But getting back to that, once the team was finally up against one antagonist, and we already seen the team break apart. I don't trust you, Ollie. We're all going to go our separate ways. Once they finally got down to Oliver versus Ricardo, that's when the show really got going and really got good because you finally got a chance to focus.
Yeah.
Instead of the tension going all over the place. Now, the season has had very ups and downs. I think Captain Lance has been one of the more, I don't want to say poorly written, but just more head-scratching written.
Well, wash, rinse, repeat, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like, all right, what's going on here? And, like, how are you believing this Laurel, who killed off Vigilante and let alone others, is the redeeming original Black Canary?
So he's put a lot of blind faith into it.
Yeah, and that felt forced. I'm sorry. That just, to me, I just did not vibe off it.
No, I definitely enjoy Ricardo Diaz's villainous ways this season because for me, the season was, I enjoyed the season, but it, like you said, it really picked up once the other members of this supervillain group were gone. Although the one gentleman, I'm blanking on his name, who was on Lost, I enjoyed seeing him. Anytime I can see him on a TV show, I enjoy because I like Lost. But once Diaz took the proverbial training wheels off and was able to go free reign, it was crazy to watch because it wasn't a typical villain where they have a goal, they do everything they can to get there, and either they get there and the hero stops them or the hero stops them just short. It was like stairs, going up a set of stairs where he's got a goal, he gets to it. Another goal, gets to it. Every time you thought he hit his ceiling, they're like, all right, he's finally got everything he needs to do what he wants. He takes over the police department, he takes over the government, he gets in with that Yakuza multinational, what were they called, the Four Corners or something like that?
The
quad or something like that, where they're in charge of or they run all crime or something all over the world. Or something. I was just like, okay, they're just up at the ante as much as they can with this guy.
Yeah, quadrant. It's something like that. But to say that, but Diaz he is so calculating in how he acts, and he's very forced rage. And what I mean by that is, he doesn't really lose his cool, but when he does, it's very calculated, and it's very thought out, and it's very precise. So when he does, it's like, holy shit.
Well, yeah, because you look at a villain like Adrian Chase, whose sole purpose was to just push Oliver to his breaking point, if not over his breaking point. And you look at a guy like Diaz, who was not afraid to set his childhood, whatever you want to call it, childhood bully on fire in front of, fake Laurel.
Yeah, which I think it just showed the layer of the character that you kind of understand what makes him tick. Mm-hmm. And I think when shows do that, it really resonates to the villain, just how you understand. You don't agree with, but you understand.
This was a villain that had an end goal, wanted to get to that end goal, and didn't care how he got to it. I mean, you look at a guy like Adrian Chase, had an end goal, but I think there were some things he wouldn't do. He's like, all right, I'm desperate. I ain't that desperate. Diaz, there was no limit he wasn't willing to go to.
To quote it, he started from the bottom, now he's here.
Yeah.
And he has no qualm about doing whatever it takes to stay on top.
So how's the old saying go? He'd sell his mother if it helped him get ahead in life. Yeah, he would.
So thus, when they get to the season finale, they finally have their break to break the hold from Diaz over the city, albeit Oliver has to forfeit his freedom. And now he's going into a Supermax. Now, I'm going to ask Pad this question because I don't know how many other people might know about this. Did you ever hear the story of the original idea for Arrow?
No.
That allegedly it was going to be based that Oliver was in a Supermax prison.
I know I saw a couple people online after the episode aired questioning, hey, do you think they're going to do Supermax storyline next season?
Yes, because originally that was rumored,
Sure.
heavily rumored to be the original plot line for what was going to be Arrow, and then Arrow went.
It's an interesting place to start, but
yeah, I just think it's very cool that they went full circle. If that is going to be the case, and just to see him escape a Supermax, because obviously now with Oliver behind bars, Team Arrow is, I guess, reunited.
Yeah, more or less.
I didn't think it'll be under Diggle, who's going to
presumably.
You would presume. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out because Oliver's not staying in jail the entire season unless they did, which would be.
I just hope it's more than 3 episodes.
Yeah, I don't want to see the typical Flash return, and I mean this because every time Flash has this great cliffhanger, it falls apart by the second episode and it's like never happened.
And remember with this season of Flash where he was imprisoned and all of a sudden it was Team Flash had to take care of things and save the city, and he was in prison for all of 3 episodes.
Yeah, I mean, there's no real lasting effect. So this one will be interesting to watch. But I think the biggest takeaway from this, Diaz is still out there.
Yeah, because what was it? Laurel Sonic screamed him off the roof in a fit of rage because of everything he'd done, and Oliver kind of lost his cool for a minute. Why, what have you done? Why did you do this? He asked her, how do you know he's dead? Which, yeah. I mean, if we all know, much like, comic book movies or TV shows, unless you're showing me a dead body, they ain't dead.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be really an interesting thing to bring him back.
I love it.
Yeah, because they haven't really done that since Slade Wilson.
Right.
But obviously when he appeared in season 1.
Slade, I'd say, is more of an anti-hero than a villain.
Well, he's got a little convoluted story there, concentrated, interpretation, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I know I'm using the big words here, but I'm just I'm trying to really form Slade is just complex. That's what I'm trying to go with. But with Diaz, it's the first time that they've had a villain carry over.
Yeah, and I'm glad they are, because to simply do everything he did, essentially half a season, because he really didn't spread his wings and sink his claws into his plan until really the second half of the season. It would almost feel cheap if they just killed him off.
Yeah, and I think that there's so much more potential you can go with it too. Like, that's the thing. There's no like bounds that you can't go with next season, because now he's going to be working behind the scenes. What's going to happen now?
And I almost wouldn't mind seeing if you get whatever point they get to in next season, they capture him, imprison him, and he almost becomes a character like what you see in comics, where he's not always a threat, but he comes and goes. He flows in and out. He's causing some trouble here and there, and then you take care of him.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to watch. I'm super excited for it, but
Yeah.
I thought Arrow rebounded so well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, they had this, I would say, one of the stronger finishes
Yes.
of the seasons. I mean, I'm going to be doing my DC report card after Supergirl is done to give the recaps of all the seasons, but I think Arrow ended on a very strong note. But it wasn't the only season finale on the CW this week. There's one more we're going to talk about after the break. You're listening to the ODPH Entertainment Edition.
Hey, this is Brian Wolf from Fair City Fire. You are listening to ODPH, the greatest podcast in Binghamton.
Woo!
Hot lips touching, cool thighs feeling, shudder running up, her spine spinning, long day to a long night, but I'm not stopping till I get it right.
Coming back on the ODPH Entertainment Edition, and The Flash had their season finale as well on the CW.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this season has been very up and down for me. I really haven't been completely 100% all in on Flash this year.
I'm quite the opposite. I really enjoyed this season. I won't say it was a total home run out of the park, but I enjoyed it a bunch simply because, and I know I've said this before on the show, I was fatigued of speedster villains.
I was fatigued of them as well, but my biggest issue, I guess, with the season is it kind of felt almost like a rehash. Like we're trying to go find all these metahumans again.
Sure.
Same thing that they did after the particle accelerator incident.
Yeah.
That it almost kind of felt like, okay, we've been down this road before.
See, for me, it almost felt like a murder mystery novel where you were given, and I didn't really realize this until after the season finale aired. Looking back on the season, you were given pieces to the puzzle, but you didn't quite get them in the right order to build the puzzle right. So, but once you get to the end of the season, you realize, oh, okay, so as you're going through the season, oh, okay, he's trying to get all these people together for his end goal and the whole thing. So I enjoyed it though.
No, it was a good season. I'm not saying it was awful. Like I'm not saying it was Inhumans by any means.
No.
No, Inhumans is, if I say that, then I'm not talking anything nice. But overall, Flash was good.
Yeah.
But my big thing with Flash is he has such a vast rogues gallery that when they went with the Thinker, I really was like, okay, at least it's not a speedster. Let's see where we go. But then they get rid of Wally West and they replace him with Ralph Digny.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go from there, and it's almost like we've seen this before, where Barry's trying to train another hero to take over, and it kind of was like.
Well, and he almost brings that up at one point later in the season, where after Ralph meets his unfortunate end at that point, he's like, anyone I ever he's like, I got to. I think it's. He's trying to get something done. I forget what it is exactly, but he's like, I got to do this on my own. Anybody I've ever trained is either left. Something's happened to him. Nothing's good ever happened to him. But it was one of those things that, like, there were moments I had issues. I know I had some issues with Ralph and all that, but by and large, I think in the end, he grew on me a little bit.
Yeah, he grows on you. I mean, throughout the year, and he was played very well too on the show. Ralph Dibny. I'm sorry, I said a different name earlier, but he was just kind of like for the comic relief. And I thought they wanted to really make a point this season of making the Flash very lighthearted, very bright, because last season was very dark.
Yeah, I mean, when you're dealing with, again, time travel and trying to prevent the future, they're a little dark.
Yeah, and obviously it was a nice step in the right direction, but it just, like, for me, it kind of felt at points was like, just kind of felt like a lot more filler episodes. But for the ending, though, they tied it all together.
Yeah.
I thought they had a very good ending.
Oh, yeah.
That I thought that they ended the story of how the Thinkers' overall plan to, I guess, eliminate knowledge in the world.
I'd go more re-educate the entire world, but re-educate in such that it's what he wants you to know.
Yeah, the Enlightenment, as he was calling it.
Yeah.
And I thought how they played it off was complete Flash too, which I thought worked because it was a crazy idea that Barry had to get inside his head to defeat the villain that had the overall thinking powers. I thought it was brilliant how they did it, and I really liked how they did the special effects, and they brought Ralph back, which I think was good because he's got a very interesting history in the comics, and plus I think they could definitely use him on the shows, some of the other shows too. I could definitely see him on Legends. I think he would be real strong on there.
I can see him showing up on an episode or two of Legends, yeah.
And I think, though, for Flash, they did the overall nice job of just tying everything up, and going into next season, we didn't get the crazy cliffhanger.
Yeah, that was surprising, but in a good way, I'd say.
Yeah, I was very happy because I didn't want to see another rehash. Because, like, for me, and I've said this on the show previously, I hate it when they do this awesome cliffhanger and it's resolved in an episode.
Yeah.
And they come back. It's like, that's it.
This is almost a not so crazy cliffhanger that probably won't be finished in an episode.
No, it won't be, because as the season ended and the team is celebrating, Joe and his wife now have a new addition to the family.
Yeah, baby girl.
And then we find out that the speedster that has been kind of hovering around
in the background,
Team Flash, since the Crisis on Earth X crossover, if I'm not mistaken, that was the first time we saw her.
Yeah.
We find out that is Barry and Iris's child, Nora.
Yep.
Which I thought, and I could have swore I banked on this, that she was going to be XS from the Legion of Superheroes. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to wind up being Joe's kid at the end.
Could be.
That I think that she is going to eventually turn, because I said her name was Jenna, and if I'm not mistaken, that's the name of XS in the future.
Sure.
So where Nora comes into play, she's not the one of the Tornado twins, if you really follow the Flash comics, which is Barry and Iris's twins,
right? That
they have, because I believe their names are Dom and Dawn, if I'm not mistaken.
And don't forget, in the episode, it was brought up between Iris and Barry about having kids.
Yes, so I think there's a little foreshadowing about that. But now going into this, Nora has now come back in time and is kind of like, I did something really bad, I screwed up something.
I'd say so. You're in the past. You're already messing with time.
Well, I mean, that's a Barry Allen trait, though. So you
apple don't far fall from the tree.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to have time travel if you're a Flash. I mean, that's going to happen. But to what extent, though? Because she wound up helping Barry eliminate the threat.
Yeah, and I didn't think he'd see her, simply because he seemed so focused on taking care of the satellite that, I know you asked, where is she? But I thought, she's on a rooftop or something. He didn't see her, and then he starts going, I couldn't have done that by myself. I wasn't there alone.
Yeah, and I think now that she said, I did something wrong, I'm thinking what she's going to say is, I came back in time and you saw me. And I think that's what's going to be the quote-unquote cliffhanger.
That could be.
Which, if it is, it's okay. I'm not gonna get mad about, because that's a very simple one. Because it's something like, okay, well, you came back in the time. It's either that or a threat came back with you.
That could be.
And I'm just trying to think now, with Flash going on season 5, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Where do they go from here?
Gorilla Grodd.
I would love to see Gorilla Grodd as the main villain.
Teasing him on multiple shows for, 2-3 years?
Yeah, but you know what? I would be okay if they did. I mean, obviously they have to recast, but give me the Rogues Gallery with a Captain Cold at the lead and make the Rogues the villains of the season. Like the legitimate Rogues team. I don't want the individual ones. I want the team. I don't care how you guys swap it out. That's what I want.
I would like to see them do a Rogues Gallery, but I think the issue, if you try to do Captain Cold, it doesn't matter who you would cast. Fans would not like it.
Fans probably wouldn't, but
no, you could cast insert very popular. You could cast Tom Hiddleston as Captain Cold. People would still be mad.
No, I think if they got Hiddleston, I think they'd be down for it.
Maybe
that might be. We might have to have a Twitter poll about that. Stay tuned. We might throw something up on the Facebook. Here are your thoughts of who Captain Cold should be. But overall, though, getting back to it, I thought Flash did end on a very good note.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it wasn't as strong as Arrow, but it was definitely a good episode.
I'd say it ended on a strong ending in that it wasn't a conventional ending for The Flash.
No, it wasn't. And it came with the very happy tones that they wanted to make the season brighter.
Yeah.
And, it worked in that aspect. I'm just curious where they're going to go, and especially now that Supergirl has introduced the Legion of Superheroes, I'm still going to say Nora is involved with the Legion of Superheroes.
Maybe.
And I'm even going to go on a farther limb. I'm going to say your mid-season crossover is going to involve the Legion, and I'm going to say they're finally going to do Crisis on Infinite Earths.
That's been rumored for a couple of years.
I'm banking on that. But let's see if I'm right or wrong. Hashtag ODPHEE. What's your thoughts on the Flash season finale? Let us know. We want to talk to you. We're going to take a quick break and end with a little Star Wars talk here on the ODPH Entertainment Edition.
Hi, this is Mike C. from I Am Horror. You're listening to the ODPH, the most killer podcast on the planet.
Coming back for the final segment on this week's ODPH Entertainment Edition, and usually this is where we have some one-shots, but there is kind of a big movie coming out this weekend that we're just going to give the final segment to.
Say, is there? I'm not really familiar with anything.
I mean, I don't know. I've heard something about this, Star something or other.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Han Solo, a Star Wars story comes out this week.
Padawan J, you are the Star Wars expert of the panel. Take it away.
Oh, I am very much looking forward to this. Now, I'm not over the moon, It's not something that, like, obviously, what's going to happen with the character. You know who's going to make it through it, who's not. Well, might not necessarily know who's not going to make it through it. There are certain characters who are making their appearance. Emilia Clarke playing Kira is definitely one character I'm very much looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you do prequels, it's always tricky. I think especially with such an established universe as the Star Wars universe is.
Where things are very much set in stone.
Yeah. To kind of go backtrack and add elements in that haven't been there before, you're walking a very fine line.
Well, that's why I have every faith in the Lucasfilm Story Group. They are not just coordinating stories with movies, but also the books, comics, online stuff, basically anything. They're very well coordinated. It's something that, I have every faith to it. I'm not over the moon, but I'm very much excited for it. I'm very much excited for two scenes that I know are going to be in the movie because they're two things that have been often referred to but never seen.
And they are?
One would be Han winning the Millennium Falcon from Lando in the card game because that's been referenced in multiple comics, in multiple books for, 25, 30 years or so. That, Han and Lando were playing a card game, and the stakes just kept going up and up and up and up and up, and then they raise until finally Lando bet the Falcon and lost. So that's something that, to my knowledge, has never been seen or put down on paper. So to see that'll be something, and then also making the Kessel Run.
And that is based?
That's based on the line in the original film Star Wars: A New Hope, where he made the Kessel Run in less than, I think it was like 14 parsecs or something like that.
See, this is where this really needs to hit home, especially if you're going to be doing the trilogy as it's rumored to be.
Yeah, rumored.
I mean, because I've also heard that the second film is going to be based on Lando.
There are a lot of people, because people have seen it already due to screenings, and I believe it opens overseas, if not Wednesday. I think it opens overseas Wednesday if it's not out already. I know there are a lot of people who want to see a Lando movie.
Yeah, well, Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian, I think, is brilliant casting, so I am all for it.
There was this guy, I think it was on Reddit, back in 2013, 2014. Somebody posted on the Star Wars subreddit that, hey, Lucasfilm, if you want to do some great casting, cast Donald Glover as Lando Calrissian.
Yeah, and I think it's brilliant, and I think Donald Glover is going to do an amazing job as Lando.
From what little we've seen in the trailer, he nails Billy D. Williams.
Yeah, and I think that him, paying homage to Billy D. Williams' character, he's going to take it very seriously. He's going to do a great job with it. I think now that you're going to get the backstory of Chewbacca a little bit,
yeah,
you don't really have in the movies rather, but it's one of those, it's going to be a nice addition to the story, especially like I'm more of a mainstream fan of Star
Sure.
Wars than you are.
Yeah.
So for me, I just really want to see how this all kind of ties into A New Hope.
Mm-hmm.
And, as the relationships are building, moving forward to it, obviously or nothing's really going to happen to Han.
Right.
So it's like, what characters are safe or not? I mean, for me, I just don't want this to be another Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
I would really be angry if it did. And I just want to see this movie just be fun. I know with Ron Howard now directing after there was some controversy at the beginning,
Yeah.
that I think he's going to right the ship, and I think he's going to make an entertaining film.
Yeah, it definitely sounds that way. I know there was some issues with the original two directors, Chris Lord and Phil Miller, I believe are their names, who directed the Lego movie. If you want, I'm not going to get into that because that's a whole show we can get into. You look online, you can find out stories about what may or may not have happened. But it's just one of those things. But from all the things because I know a couple people who went to the premiere out in Los Angeles, they enjoyed it. They said it's a great movie. If they do a trilogy, I'll be all right with it. But I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it.
I'm definitely looking forward to see it too, because I mean, obviously, summertime is the big time at the box office. It's when the best movies of the year come out.
I think the only thing that sucks about it is we're getting a Star Wars movie now. We got to wait like a year and a half for the next one.
Maybe.
No, we do.
Well, I mean, you would know before I do.
The release date for Episode 9 is December of next year.
But you know what? That's okay, because I don't want to say you're oversaturating if you do one every year at the same time.
Yeah, that's true. Plus, you've got Episode 9 going. Ryan Johnson's got his trilogy he's working on that. Other than he's working on a trilogy, nothing's known about.
And now it's being rumored, Lando's going to have a film, and then
there's the off-again, on-again rumors of Obi-Wan Kenobi movie.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in the Star Wars universe that it's sort of like, okay, if we get Episode 9, that's, I think, the most anticipated project.
I would say so, yeah.
Out of anything coming out, because that's the end of the Skywalker saga, if I'm not mistaken.
That's what the rumor is.
See, and for me, that's not the end of Star Wars, but that's the end of one big chapter.
See, that to me, it makes sense because I know that a lot of people have issue with Luke dying in The Last Jedi. But to me, I didn't hate it simply because it almost felt like they were tying too much of the Star Wars universe into, the Skywalkers have to come save us. You had the events of Episode 1, which brought in Anakin, and, Episode 2 and Episode 3, which by and large the events then, Anakin had to come save the day. Luke had to come save the day. Going in Force Awakens, Luke wasn't there. So Luke couldn't save the day. Last Jedi, Luke helped, but he didn't save the day. You get the end shot of The Last Jedi where it's kind of reestablishing that, anybody can be a hero. Anybody can do their part.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what the whole thing about Star Wars is. It's just you take a relatively unknown and they can save the world, save the universe. Anything can happen if you have the good force in you.
Mm-hmm.
So going into that, I mean, Episode 9 has got a lot to live up to. I know that we all loved, for the most part, Episode 8.
Yeah, it was by no means a perfect movie, but I still enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. And I know that I've read about other people having really issues with it.
Yeah, there's a very vocal contingent.
Yeah, which, I mean, hey, everybody's got their opinions because I think if everybody's all cookie cutter, it would be nothing to talk about.
No.
But I think for what I'm expecting on Episode 9 is going to be kind of a telling point of what I see in Solo. And what I mean by that is, all right, Solo is supposed to be your backstory.
Sure.
This is kind of really going to be the first film since the backlash of 8.
Mm-hmm.
So thus, seeing how everybody's going to be reacting to Solo is going to be kind of an idea of, okay, what's to be expected from 9. And what I mean by that is you're going to have people that are either going to love Solo or really hate it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're going to be really angry, the pressure is going to be on to deliver the epic film of Episode 9.
Yeah.
If they love it, Episode 9 has a little more breathing room, I think. A little bit. Not,
I would
like a minuscule, but it has enough that.
Well, no, I'd say Episode 9 has a fair amount of breathing room simply because you look. J.J. Abrams is directing it.
Mm-hmm.
He is not constrained as he was with The Force Awakens, where he had to set up everything. He had to essentially set up half of a new galaxy because this was taking place 30 or 40 years after Return of the Jedi. He had to do a lot of setting up. He had to do a lot of exposition and introducing a lot of people. With this, any new characters that are going to be introduced is probably not going to factor in a big role. He's going to have essentially the restraints taken off and can just go ham on this thing.
And that's what he needs to do. But I think that, the restraints are going to be off. But I think, obviously, however Solo is going to leave the impact on the fans' minds is going to impact Episode 9.
I'll say the one thing I keep hearing, and I'm avoiding it like the plague, is I have heard there is a large, fairly big cameo in the film. I don't know what it is. I don't want to know what it is. That's all I know.
I just wanted it to be Boba Fett.
Maybe. I don't know.
That's all I care about. If Boba Fett's in Han Solo movie, I'm going to be happy.
I'll say if Boba Fett is in anything, I want it to be Daniel Logan from Attack of the Clones because he's the right age to play Boba Fett at this time period in the storyline.
Well, I would be happy to see either Boba Fett or Darth Maul.
Doing math in my head, he's still alive technically at this point. Wait, no, close. Depending on where this is put in the timeline, it's close because he dies in Rebels, which takes place before A New Hope.
Okay.
So it's depending on where Solo is placed in that timeline, which I know once books start coming out in the front of the Star Wars books, they put the timeline of like where everything is, including the TV series. We'll know more down the road, but depending on where this is placed, he may or may not be dead already.
Okay. See, like that's what I said. I am the mainstream fan. His name is Padawan for a reason, folks. So I'm not even going to debate about that. But we definitely are excited to go see the movie. We'll be talking about it on next week's show. And we also have the wrestling recap coming back next week as well.
Oh, boy, do I have some thoughts.
Oh, it's going to be a definitely wild week here on the ODPH. So, Bright Guy Signal could not make it in this week, but he's going to be hitting the blogs. For Padawan J,
may the force be with you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you as always for listening to the ODPH Entertainment Edition. We'll see you next time.